Hi, and thank you for joining me for the Anika Apple Podcast. I'm glad you could be here this week so that we can have a really important conversation around abundance. How do you heal your way to having an abundant life? We're going to get into it today on this episode, but first, I want to give you a message from my heart to yours. Last month, I had the opportunity to learn some really big lessons about my connection to financial abundance. I learned about the things that I have navigated as patterns that are familial, that were part of my nurture. I learned about some of my own learned behaviors, the own created behaviors that I have, and my connection to abundance and how I navigate when I'm not feeling abundant versus how I navigate when I'm feeling very abundant, and what those things bring up for me, what they create, what kind of relationship that I have with the people around me based on how I'm feeling about my abundance. It's a very interesting dynamic. So, and needless to say, there were a lot of things around scarcity that I cleared last month, and I'm grateful for the work that we do in the Healing Crusade to navigate through that. But here's the thing that I found really fascinating that I wanted to share with you on today's episode. One of the big aha moments that I had was around saving. And so what I recognize is that overtly, I believe saving is a good thing. Like saving is great. Saving is good. You're preparing for a rainy day. You're preparing for the things to come. And you know, that putting things away in a planful way, having intentions with what you want to do with your financial resources absolutely makes sense, right? And I recognize that as we go through different challenges and ebbs and flows of life, that there are some times where we have more of that available resource to save. And there are times when certainly my experience has been where it's like you're just navigating day to day through what you have and like, that's it. And I can remember starting off earlier in my career, before having children and getting married and all of those things, and sitting through a financial planning webinar, and they were talking about the power of using your 401k. And they said one thing to me that caught my attention, and it changed everything for me. They asked the question of, would you throw away free money? And I'm like, no one's throwing away free money, right? But then they talked about how the opportunity to invest in your 401k was like throwing away free money when there was an opportunity to have a company match. And so that is money that you use to multiply the money that you are pulling out of your paycheck based on whatever percentage the company is matching. And that's a huge opportunity for you because you can grow your money at an even faster rate because you have the benefit of having a company match. And so for me, saving meant using vehicles like 401k and investment vehicles and things like that across different chapters of my life. I've not always been able to do that. And there have definitely been times where I've spent more time doing catch up. And I recognize the value of doing it over time. What was really interesting me in the exploration last month is that I recognized that sometimes the energy around saving comes from a place that is fear-based. And that there is a different energy that you have when you're saving. I want you to think about winter, like not on its way, not a squirrel, like, grabbing all of the nuts and placing them in the tree and being strategic about the plan for the future. But like the first cold days come, the threat of snow is hanging in the air, and it's like that scurrying to try and hurry up and grab whatever else you can and pack it away. Well, there's an energy that is attached to scarcity when we move from a place of fear. And that is a very different dynamic than when we are saving from a place of strategy. And I don't know if you've ever considered it like this before. I know I hadn't. And what I recognized that I was being shown last month is that a lot of times the connection to saving has been from a place of fear or scarcity. Even when it is like, oh my goodness, I was in this situation. I never want to be in this situation again. So I'm going to save in this way that prevents this thing from happening. And what we see when we really peel that back is we're coming back to a place of trying to hold on to control. And wherever there is control, there is fear. And wherever there is fear, there is scarcity, right? There's a connective tissue between those things that have us operate in a certain way. And why this is important to you is not to say that when you're putting aside money, even if there is a fear or you're trying to prevent something from happening, that is not, that you are not doing something positive in terms of having money set aside. But the energy that you utilize as you're putting that money aside makes a difference on whether or not it is attracting more resources and what it's saying to the way that the flow of the energy of money is coming in and out of your life. When you are saving from a place of fear, opportunities arise. Those opportunities could be things to invest in, other vehicles. It could be an opportunity for you to do something that is a once in a lifetime opportunity, or checking some things off your bucket list. We have to pay attention to whether or not the way in which we have a relationship with saving impacts our ability to experience the fullness of life today. And I think there's a happy medium between the two. That you absolutely want to be saving because today might not be the rainy day that you really want to use those resources for. And also that there should be some opportunity in the immediate term to be able to celebrate and recognize the accomplishments and the things that you have, that you desire to celebrate across your journey of life. When we are in an abundant mindset, all things are in flow. And of course, we nurture that mindset over time, which we'll get into a little bit more in the episode today. But you're not holding on to the thing as if it's the last of what you will receive. And that matters because the way that you allow the financial abundance to flow to you and from you matters. So from my heart to yours, I want to encourage you to consider the way you save when you're thinking about your relationship with financial abundance. Are you saving from a standpoint of, I'm planning for the future, it's bringing me joy, I know that what I have, if I need it, I'll be able to use it for something in the immediate term as well as in the long term? Are you thinking about it as a part of the sequence of flow that you have in abundance across your life? Or is it coming from a place of holding on so tightly and trying to control all of what is possible in the future? When we move from a place of scarcity, we really separate ourselves from the flow that God desires to have in our life. Lives are supposed to be experienced from a place of abundance. Of course, you need to have some moments of scarcity and challenge to really be able to appreciate what you have. But it is for us to recognize what the motivation is behind the behaviors, as well as just seeing what we're doing. On the surface, saving looks like a really good thing. But unpacking it and looking at the intention behind it and what energy it then creates for us makes a difference. In all things, setting goals is a good thing. Having our milestones, recognizing the progress we're making is a good thing. Planning for the future is a good thing. We just want to be careful that we don't get to a place where we are so focused on a specific outcome that we cannot see that the opportunities are blossoming all around us. So I just encourage you to think about that as you consider the ways in which you navigate through all of the abundant flow of finances into your life. What are the places for you that really spark joy? What are the practices that help you achieve what it is that you want in the long term? And what can you learn from the behavioral patterns that you're experiencing and seeing in yourself today? And now let's get into our episode. I'm so excited to talk to you today about abundance and the things that get in the way, because this conversation is so meaningful. When I think about what it means to have an abundant life, it takes me to my hallmark, right? Which is that I help people create and live remarkable lives. Well, to live a remarkable life is to have an abundant life. It's the recognition of all things being available to you, flowing in and out of your life in the way that you desire. And that when things are misaligned for you, that you can create, you can change, and invite in whatever it is that you want so that you live indeed a truly remarkable life. A remarkable life, for those of you who are new to me, is one that is worthy of note. It's one that is so worthy of living. It's one that when you look back on your porch, closer to the latter days of life, that you see that you lived in such a way that brought such joy, that used your gifts to the full, that gave you the opportunity to pour into others. A life that feels so deeply worthy of living. You're proud of the ways that you have impacted the world. That's a remarkable life. A remarkable life is not one that has no regret, but it's one where you've learned, if you've ever had regrets, how to release them and to appreciate what's present for you in the moment, where you create opportunities to experience life more abundantly and to share your abundance, the energy of abundance, the wisdom of abundance, and the actual fruitfulness of your abundance with others. What I love about a remarkable life is that you can always name and claim it for yourself, because each of us are purposed to live our lives in a different way. And so you get to determine what's remarkable for you. And that might sound a little bit different than my definition, but at its core, we are creating a life that is worth living. And that's what we so deeply deserve. There's joy there. There's passion there. There's love there. There's grace. And there's an energy that calls us forward to keep going, even when it's difficult. I hope that you embrace and live a truly remarkable life. So abundance is one of the ways that we get to live this remarkable life. And what I love about the journey of abundance is that there is some beautiful healing work that comes connected to it. Perhaps you might have some areas of your life right now where you feel fully abundant, and others where maybe you're navigating through scarcity. But to be abundant is not a state like you get there and you have achieved abundance and then that's it. There's an ongoing flow of abundance because you are abundant as a person. And so your experience of abundance is going to change over time. What you consider to be abundance may grow. It may shift as you have different experiences in your life, as you set different goals for yourself, as you achieve different milestones across your life. But to call yourself abundant is to be clear about who you are in your connection to the Creator. That you have what you need, that it flows easily from you to the world, and that more flows to you when needed. That you understand that in all areas of your life, not just your finances or your health or love, but that you have access to all that you need in all of those areas. Part of our work is to create abundance, the experience of abundance in our life. And it is to allow ourselves to create very clear roadmaps as to what abundance would look like in those different areas. So what does it look like to be abundant in love? When you have an abundance of love, what is that experience for you? How can you measure it or mark it as something that you are achieving? Abundance in health, in all of the ways that you take care of yourself. How is it that you feel abundant? What are the things that mark abundance flowing into health for you? and so on and so forth. I think we spend a lot of time talking about money as abundance is a part of our abundance. It's a tool for abundance, for freedom, for living the life of your dreams, all of those things. And money is energy, it's a currency. And it's really interesting because a lot of times we focus on money, but really we should be talking about overall wealth, because money is just a part of the puzzle of wealth. Well, I want to talk about some of the ways in which we can interrupt abundance. And it's really interesting when you consider that we tend to think about abundance as an individual thing, but it actually is impacted pretty significantly by our community. Those are the people around you. It's by the way that you were raised. It's by the external community, society as a whole. There are a lot of different factors that feed into how you define, see, and believe that you are worthy of experiencing abundance. So I want to unpack a couple of these for you and encourage you to really think about how you can shift the flow of abundance into your life by paying attention to the areas where perhaps the flow of abundance is not where you desire it to be. And so I want to talk about 4 key areas that can interrupt the flow of abundance into your life: mindset, behaviors, trauma, and the environment. So one of the first things I think is important for us to recognize is that we have to have a good, healthy mindset around abundance. Things like considering your worthiness, the recognition of the thoughts that you have around your financial abundance, whether or not you believe you're capable of earning, maintaining, holding on to, nurturing, growing your finances. All of those things are a part of your mindset. And our mindset is where we get into this connection to whether or not we really deeply believe that we are worthy to have it. When we know who we are, and I mean in our divinity, like connected to the source of all, we understand that our source is abundant. They are all of abundance. All abundance flows from them. And so, made in their image and sent truly to be abundant beings, then it should stand to reason that we believe that abundance is ours. But we have been conditioned in so many ways and shown examples in the physical world that lead us to believe that maybe we're not quite worthy of it. There must be something that we did that causes the flow of abundance to stop. Perhaps there's something that we didn't do enough of or yet. Or we're not smart enough, or we're not, we'll never have it because there's a generational pattern of poverty or things like that. So to start addressing the gap around mindset, you have to interrogate your beliefs. What is it that you are believing? What is it that you are saying to yourself? And how are the behaviors, your trauma, and environment informing those beliefs? So first thing on your agenda is to begin to unpack your beliefs. What are your beliefs around abundance in your finances? What are the ways in which you feel that you might be unworthy of having what it is that you desire? And if unworthiness is not a challenge for you, that's great. Good job on your healing work there. Then what are the other things that might be getting in the way? And we move to behaviors because there are patterns that we follow without even recognizing that we're doing them. They're as automatic as breathing. So behaviors can be really tricky for us because in many cases we learned behaviors from our parents, from the adults that we were around, from school. We learned them in the way that society operates. We learn these behaviors and they become patterns for us and they are almost automatic. So we want to recognize that even as abundance is trying to flow to us, that the behaviors that we have might stop us from being able to receive the abundance. That might look like cutting off opportunities. It might look like the behaviors that you have in your finances today. Perhaps you find yourself at moments where it's like feast or famine. Like when you have, you're using it in such a way that you're not considering how you can save some for tomorrow. I know that sometimes the behavior around scarcity can be, well, I didn't have this, and so let me hurry up and have all of these things in preparation for a time that comes when I don't have that. And that's an important thing for us to interrogate, because what happens if you're storing all of these things up and there are things that expire or they live out their timeline, right? Even if it's clothing and apparel, there are times that things are going to go out of style. So stocking up on all of the things that you weren't able to have in a time in the past can be a behavior that actually usurps the good effort that you're trying to put in. Storing up too much produce, as an example, for a time where you're concerned about a famine is not going to really, it's not going to bode well for you, right? Because produce has a timeline. It's going to expire. And at some point, the things that you have will go bad and you won't have it. And so you might find yourself right at the edge of that moment where you need that good, fresh produce, right? And everything that you've already purchased has gone bad. Now, the other side of that, the behavior shift might be that you know there's some things that you want to have for the future. So what's the amount of measure that you need to have? If we stick with our example of produce, are there things that you can grow yourself? Microgreens, onions, garlic, there are so many staples in your household that you might use for cooking and even for other remedies, right? That you can grow yourself. And so in an instance like that, you can take the behavior that you typically use and stop using that behavior. You can shift it. And that gives you an opportunity to see and understand the behavior. Let's talk about understanding the behavior for a moment as I say that, because I think it's also important for us to interrogate where the behavior comes from. What makes us want to do things in this way? And when we ask those questions, we ask them from a place of appreciation. Why is it that we feel a need to stock up on so many things that will have an expiration date? What's your plan to use the things that you've stocked up on? And in the end, if you've stocked up on a lot of things and you have to throw them out, how much have you invested that now is wasted? Versus if you would have saved that money and stored it for a day in the future. So there are all different ways to explore the behavioral patterns, but I will tell you this. One of the things that I believe has the incredible opportunity to shift your relationship with abundance is to consider the way that you give. I can remember a time in my early adulthood where I said to God, make me a cheerful giver. And it wasn't that I did not think that I was good at sharing or was not open to sharing my resources. I was, but I felt like there was something else there. Could I learn to share with such purity of heart that it did not matter if that thing ever came back to me or not? Could I do it from a place of such genuine purity? And when I think about what abundance is, it's a flow in and an energy of flowing out of whatever that thing is, right? So if we talk about the financial abundance, this looks like you being open to receiving money, the currency, when it comes to you, and also allowing it to freely leave when it's time for you to use it in other ways. There are some thought leaders that talk about have the energy that you have when you spend money needing to equal that energy that you have when you receive it. So which one do you prefer? Are you as excited about pouring out money as you are about receiving it? If not, there might be some scarcity there. If you're really excited to go spend it and not necessarily as excited about receiving it, you might have some patterns of behavior that talk about whether or not you really think that you are worthy to receive money. It's great to want to have a flow of it going out, but you have to have a flow of it coming in, right? And so the goal is to have this beautiful ebb and flow where there's always a flow of it coming and there's always the opportunity for it to go, and you allow it to flow from your hands as easily as it comes. So that speaks to your exploring the behavior that you have around abundance. And I want to talk about trauma because I think that it deserves its own category. Because while trauma shows up in both mindset and behaviors for us, we often do not get to the root of how the traumas that we've experienced in our lives inform our relationship to abundance. And they inform our relationship to abundance, not just in our financial abundance, but also in every area of our lives. So, one of the things to think about are, what are the traumas that you've gone through in your life? Do you consider some of the things that you have experienced a trauma? I know for myself, one of the things that that was a really big awakening for me was understanding that there is such a thing as financial abuse. And having experienced other types of abuse in my lifetime, I did not recognize that financial abuse was a real thing. I was describing to someone an experience that I had, and I did not recognize that it was abuse. I recognized the elements of it that were emotional abuse. I recognized it in that way, but not that it was its own thing. And I will tell you that the trauma of going through financial abuse absolutely shifted the relationship that I have with money. It shifted the relationship I have with investing. It shifted the way I talk about money. It shifted so many things in my behavior and mindset. And even though I could talk to myself differently, I could change the self talk that I used about money, even though I could observe the behaviors without working on the trauma, having the unresolved trauma meant that I continued to find myself in those patterns again and again. When we work through the trauma, the what does this thing mean? What is the root of it? Where did it come from? What happened to us that needs to be healed? We will experience more freedom with our financial abundance. And I would say this again applies to every area of abundance in your life. But traumas tend to be deep rooted. And the experiences, we might connect it to one specific thing, but it's as if the same way that you would look at a tree where it looks like you see the tree standing boldly in a single spot. And it looks like it would just be rooted right where it is, right? Right at the base of the tree. But if we begin to explore the base of the tree, we can start to see how it juts off into different roots. And then the roots go down into the ground in all different directions. We need that, the exploration beneath the surface to understand what happened. What else is this connected to? Because when we can address things by the root, we can change them. And we can change them in such a way that they don't keep coming up for us over and over again. If you see another exposed root, you know exactly how to respond to it because you understand where it came from. You understand the impetus. So unresolved trauma is a really important thing to work through, and it will help you to have a good, healthy relationship with your abundance. It will help you to see and understand it differently, and it will transform your mindset around being abundant, your worthiness of abundance, and to shift your patterns of behavior. So I want to talk about the environment as we get to the last of our 4 areas that impact abundance. I think that we often don't recognize the importance of our environment. The environment is critical because when we are growing and when we're healing, when we are transforming, when we are shifting, when we are pivoting, the environment around us is going to inform us in ways that we may not even be aware of. And that environment is the people that you are around. It's the typical behaviors that we see happening in society. It's the words that we hear, the rhetoric that we hear through TV and social media. It's all of the ways in which we create this external narrative around abundance. If you were to look at your circle of friends today, can you say that you are surrounded by people who are abundant in their mindset, who behave in ways that attract support and encourage healthy use of their financial resources? Is there an energy in the group around teaching one another how to grow their resources? Is there an energy to talk about financial abundance at all? Are people scared to have those conversations? Or do they shy away from talking about money? Because if so, then there's probably a lot of opportunity to strengthen the individual and collective worthiness around your financial abundance. If the environment around you is one where when you talk about money, there's a negative connotation, if you are watching the algorithm will bring you things that talk about how prices are so high on things, here's what's going to be happening in the economy, and giving you more and more woe is me, then it is reasonable to understand that you would begin to feel more contracting around money. So, what are some of the things that you can do around your environment? Well, you certainly can't control all elements of your environment, but you do have influence. And where you have choice to choose the things that you are going to allow in your space, do that. And where you have a recognition that perhaps some people in your circle may not share the same mindset that you do around financial abundance, you have the opportunity to be the change, to be the catalyst for thinking differently. You can also choose to distance yourself, to create some space. You can also choose to bring some other people into your inner circle to be around you who are focused on growing in the way that you have. I know for myself that when I was younger and I was in an investment journey, that I surrounded myself with people who were very interested in investing. And having those conversations was really helpful for me because I learned through their experiences. I learned through the things that they shared. I had the opportunity to share things and I recognized where I was in relationship to where I wanted to be in terms of my knowledge base. I could see myself because I had the opportunity to understand what people did who wanted to have more control over or influence over the way that they invested. I also had people who I could learn from about things like options that I was not aware was even a part of an investment strategy, right? And so I had, or trade strategy, I had the opportunity to create an environment that was conducive for what I wanted to learn. And I made sure that I also was someone who could contribute to those conversations, which helped me to be accountable in my learning journey. I would just say to you that there's more ways for you to influence the environment than what perhaps you realize. You can decide that there are just some shows that you won't watch, that there are just some things that you won't listen to, there are just some places where you won't invest your time. Because in a season when you are healing, when you are changing your mindset, when you're trying to get new behaviors to take root, you want to be really careful with what you put around yourself. Because the more that you have people, that you have thought leadership, that you are reading, that you are investing in things that support your growth, the quicker you will find yourself growing and evolving in relationship to that particular topic. So, what does it look like for you to consider an investment club? What does it look like for you to surround yourself with people who are interested in having real conversations about healing family trauma around money? What does it look like to be a part of a mastermind that is about helping people to grow in their worthiness, helping them to experience and explore abundance? What does it look like to infuse the relationship in your closest circles? Because it matters. There's a saying that I love, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I call it out in this moment because I think it is so apropos that you absolutely can be a part of the rising tide. But thinking about lifting the boat on your own is a different story. And a lot of times what we do is we try to shoulder it all instead of inviting people on the journey with us. And sometimes we will try to force our will on a group that very clearly is not interested in growing in that way in this particular moment. I found across my experience that sometimes people need to see you doing the thing. They need to see you and experience it. They want to see that there is fruitfulness coming at the end of the labor. They want to watch They support you, but perhaps don't want to be on the same journey. And so that's something for you to explore. So these are some of the things that typically get in the way of abundance: your mindset, your behaviors, trauma, and we'll say unresolved trauma, trauma that's unexplored, where you have not found and really identified the roots and begun to do the work to um, to shift the way in which that trauma impacts your life. And then, of course, creating the right environment. And in all of these things, I would tell you that support helps. Having the right network around you as you're navigating through trauma, as you're creating new behaviors, as you're shifting your mindset, ones that will help you be accountable around the environment that you're creating, it's really beneficial. For those of you that follow the podcast, you hear me talk about therapy all the time, right? I think that therapy is an incredibly important and valuable tool. As a matter of fact, even in the EMDR work that I did last year, there were some things that came up around my relationship to my financial abundance. And I'm grateful for that. It was a great starting point for the journey that I would go on across last year and this year around abundance. And then, of course, I believe that the power of having coaches in your life who focus on these areas specifically are really helpful. And now that I've identified not all, but some of the things that can get in the way of our abundance, it's a great opportunity for you to ask yourself, what are the things that would be most meaningful for me to shift the relationship that I have with abundance today? If I want to really see myself growing, receiving the fact that I am an abundant being and actually feeling the flow of abundance coming in and out of my life, recognizing the financial wealth that is coming in and out of my life, then I would ask you, what are 2 or 3 actionable steps that you can take today? And who are the right resources to help you navigate through that challenge? In my work, I look at supporting people in shifting the mindsets and behaviors and navigating to the core of who they are, which sometimes means resetting beliefs. And so if we don't believe that we're worthy of abundance, we can do all of the right behaviors and we still will find ourselves allowing opportunities to slip through our fingers, not saying yes to things that are absolutely opportunities for us to learn and grow. We will allow resources to slip through our fingers. We will perpetuate the old behaviors. We will find that when trauma comes up, we ignore it, and then it just continues to fester. It continues to impact our relationship to abundance. So think about the ways in which support for you would be helpful. And I encourage you to make a list, reach out to the people that you've placed on the list, and make a contract. Tell them what it is that you're working for. Have them sit with you as you set some goals, and then describe to them what accountability would look like. It's a really great starting point. And if you're ready for support on your healing journey, you already know where to meet me. You can find me at anikaapple.com. And I would love to take a discovery call with you and talk about how the work that I do can help and support you on your journey to living a more abundant and remarkable life. That's all the time we have for the episode today, but I will see you again next week on the Anika Apple Podcast. As always, peace and blessings.